Here are 5 tips on how we saved money at our wedding. Hey, welcome back. These are the 5 things that we did to save money at our wedding. As I mentioned in a previous post, I had gotten married when my wife and I were relatively young. We were making like $7.50 an hour. We didn't have a pot to piss in. And I think that is a technical financial term. We don't have a pot to piss in. But we were officially not in the right financial level to really start planning a wedding. However, we did plan and we ended up paying for our wedding ourselves, and we were as frugal as we could be in doing so. While my marriage did end after 15 years, it was a pretty good run, and it still remains one of the happiest days and one of my favorite days of my life. And so these are some of the tips on how we cut costs at our wedding. And so I wanted to write this because I wanted to share the story because I hear all these crazy stories of people spending thousands and thousands of dollars on their wedding. And I'd like some people to just maybe realize they don't need to spend $20,000 or even $30,000 on a wedding. The website The Knot says that an average Minnesota wedding last year in 2021 was $23,000. Crazy, right? So let's go ahead and jump in. Tip number 1, DIY all that you can do. Our invites, our centerpieces, they were all handmade. My wife was pretty crafty at the time. She did a lot of handmade greeting cards and scrapbooks and that type of stuff for years. So when it came to the wedding invitations, she literally handmade every single one, and they were beautiful. They were awesome. We kept the guest list relatively small, and so we had our closest family and friends there. They attended the wedding and the reception. And we also did things like buying pre-printed shells that we ran through my printer for like the programs and that type of thing. Saved some additional money there. Not only the wedding invitations and centerpieces, but also the gifts and little, we gave everyone a custom-made candy bar. And what we did is I designed and printed the candy bar wrappers where I worked. We did that for free. And then I went to Sam's Club and purchased individual candy bars. I then went through and wrapped every single one by hand with a glue stick, and I'm putting the wrapper on every candy bar. It was a really great touch to the wedding. Tip number 2, quality versus quantity. When it comes to the guest list, you hear people with these ginormous lists, right? Hundreds and hundreds of people, and I think it's really silly. We had a relatively smaller wedding, about 50 people on the guest list with our closest family and friends. People continue to change. Life continues to evolve. There are people we were so wicked close to whom we drift apart. And those people, go on and build their lives of their own. I don't regret anything about having those people involved back then, but they were a huge part of our lives and a huge part of our wedding. But I bring this up to illustrate that the point is trying not to incur this crazy extra cost by having long guest lists. Let's focus on those key people that, because you might not even be friends with those people years later. Tip number 3, reception hall for free. Yeah, one of the biggest and most significant ways that we were able to save money is that having the wedding reception at the church. And yes, you heard that right, at the church. So the wedding ceremony was held at the church that my wife's family had been members of for years and years. Even some of the custom stained glass windows in the church had my ex-wife's grandparents' names under them. I often made jokes that I'll burst into flame when I enter the sanctuary because, heavy metal's evil and all. But, when it came for the wedding, when it came time for the wedding reception, we actually had the reception downstairs in the fellowship hall. Again, this was with a full commercial kitchen and that type of thing. But because my wife had been a member of the congregation at that church, we got married in the sanctuary upstairs. Then we made use of the fellowship hall downstairs for free. And you can't beat You can't beat free, right? Now, I need to also explain, because this was a church, there were certain things that we couldn't have, like alcohol. There wasn't alcohol at our, this was a consideration, being that having a reception elsewhere and providing like open or cash bar is kind of the standard convention, right? But we saved so much money by leveraging my wife's relationship with the church and using this meeting space for free. Our reception didn't go late into the night with a lot of dancing, like I said before, but I don't regret anything about it. I mean, those people that really meant something to us, they were able to stay and share in our special day and really have a great time with great food and friends and family together. And we hope our families and friends would have just respected that as well. Now, I had later hoped that to have like an anniversary party later on where we could have dancing and drinks. And, unfortunately, we didn't really get that opportunity. But like I said, it was a great day. Tip number 4 is the wedding rings. Believe it or not, the wedding rings, you can trade up. And that's another thing that we did to save tons of money. I didn't go out and buy this huge lavish ring. We just continued to trade up with rings that I've purchased in the past. So while we were dating, I had purchased a promise ring to begin with. I mean, that's what we called it back then, right? So beginning with that entry-level ring that I really could afford, and that was like $200. And then we would continue to bring this ring to the same jeweler multiple times throughout the wedding or throughout our relationship. And basically getting that same residual value of the jewel in the band and then only paying the difference. And I did this several times. There was a solitaire ring next to the gold band. I did this and continued this trade up process even up through our 10-year anniversary. It was a long time ago, so some of the other details are kind of forgotten and kind of fuzzy, but I do know this. We had always been frugal, and we looked for ways that we could save money along the way and cut costs. And this is what we did, and by trading up that ring was really a great way to get that awesome wedding band for a fraction of the cost. All right, tip number 5, the honeymoon. We knew that we didn't have a lot of money. So what we did is we went to a bed and breakfast for a long weekend right after the wedding. We spent nearly everything that we had on the wedding day itself. And so we understood that the honeymoon would be delayed. So rather than go into huge debt and go on a vacation we could not afford, what we did is we went to a local bed and breakfast immediately following the wedding for a long weekend. And it was awesome. So following the ceremony and reception, this wasn't really too far away. We drove just a couple hours away from the cities where we lived, and it was much less expensive to spend just a couple of nights together at this bed and breakfast. It was beautiful. We had delicious meals, wonderful food. We did canoeing. We played games. We walked the beach and the trails. We visited shops in town, and we followed up with our true vacation a year and a half later when my wife and I went to Disney World for our official honeymoon. So thanks again for following along. That was 5 quick tips on how we saved money on our wedding. I want to hear ways that you've saved on your wedding as well. Please feel free to comment below, like, and subscribe. Smash that bell so you get notified when new videos get posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Heavy Metal Money.